starting to do that we will be ready for what's coming, understanding what's coming and looking ahead for the solution. I pray this in your name. Amen. Good. So, I've got a health nugget for you before we start the actual lecture. I've got something here. It is a block of salt. And I chopped it from a bigger block, and I use this as my deodorant. So if you need something stronger than this to take the flavors away, that stuff will interfere with your brain. And many times it's tasked to dump us a little bit down. So if this can mask the flavors, then you know that you're not far off from the goal. That's just a little nugget. Good. So we started this heading down this lane by doing seawater agriculture, and we wanted to understand God's purpose for using the flood as a reset for the sin problem. We discovered a lot of stuff from that. The seawater agriculture I won't be able to cover today, but what I've done is I've added the story of agriculture in some, how would I call, streams, so that we can follow from what we've talked this morning and understand what's happening now in connection with that and the way that we should go, and the solution for the problems coming up. Okay, the story of agriculture. The opening slide starts from the top. It says a healthy soil containing the same triangle, carbon, microbes and water, leads to healthy plants. That's our food. It leads to healthy people. It leads to a healthy character and also a healthy destination. So there's a lot of science in starting with a healthy soil in terms of salvation. Right, let's look quickly at the unwanted promises, what was given to Israel as they went out of slavery. Deuteronomy 7:11. Thou shalt therefore keep the commandments and the statutes and the judgments which I command thee this day to do them. 7:15 gives more clarity on that. And the Lord will take away from thee all sickness, and will put none of the evil diseases of Egypt which thou knowest upon thee, but will lay them upon all them that hate thee. So there is already a distinction starting to come in. That we are supposed to be free from the evil diseases of Egypt. That means lifestyle diseases. I don't want to go into detail, but if you look at stuff like diabetes and inflammation and all that kind of stuff, there's really a lot that we can do to improve that situation. Exodus 15:26, and said, If thou wilt diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, and will do that which is right in his sight, and will give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of these diseases upon thee, which I have brought upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord that healeth thee. Never lose sight of that. I am the Lord that healeth thee. So, the question we have to ask for that to go into condition is, what was the condition? As the Israelites came out of slavery, God made this promise to them, but there was a condition to that. And that condition pertains to worship, food, and water. So if they deviate from that, this would not be fulfilled to them. So there was a condition to this. And we can use the same road with the same condition to arrive at the same destination. Good. There are some developments that we have to take into account. We received the judgment in Genesis 3:23 that we should go and till the ground. Now many of us, I understand here, is starting to dig into the ground and finding results and better results and not good results. But there's a good meaning to the tilling of the ground. I remember now when the guy was looking after the fig tree and the owner come and find no figs. And the owner said, cut it down. What did the gardener say? Please give me another year. I will look well after this tree and we can do whatever we can. If it still don't bear fruit, we'll make a plan with it. So that is what it means, tilling the ground. Now I've added you some pictures there. This is ancient methods. So what was very interesting is you find that the ancient method to produce food was running basically for thousands of years, unchanged, and the produce was good and the effects on health was also good. And here you can see from the Egyptian culture how the methods was at that time. Then I brought this little story in for you. You can see there's a development. Now the time scale is not exactly correct there, it was 8,000 years ago. But let's not argue about that picture. The picture is telling the story, how there was a development until nowadays. And what I want to show by this picture, it is at the very last moments now of our existence on this planet that the big changes are starting to happen. When the industry revolution starts to take place and tractors and fertilizer and that comes in, many changes happen in a short while, and the problem now is so quick that it's very difficult to follow that. So I've added this little timeline for you, and if you notice there where the little arrow sits, that's more or less when our first health vision was given. Now we see clearly that the Industrial Revolution starts at the end of the 17th leading into the 1800s, and at 1860, just before that was given, the horses were in competition with mechanization, but the horses were still ahead. It's very interesting that the plows and implements came about before the tractors came about. But after that, the Industrial Revolution starts to take over. And the reason for the vision giving at that time is, I believe that God deemed it necessary for us to understand agriculture in terms of health, and theology also in terms of health. So that gives us the reason for the timing at that stage. I just want to bring that to attention here. Now, you will see many of the ancient methods, it was still like that. You can see the produce being harvested there is still of the older types. And then this mechanization starts, and you can see the amount of heaps of grain standing in the background, that now the whole process accelerates a lot. There's speed gained in this. Now this gives you an idea of how the implements and stuff involved, and the years are added there so you can see how mechanization starts to take over the process. And there you can see, I've added that little picture for you to see that nowadays you have tractors that run around without drivers. They are not even needed, they run by GPS. So that is just very quickly how things are developing right now. There's just an idea for you of the modern equipment. We are also working grains, and we are working with that equipment. But we've decided now that we're going to change what we do into more natural methods. because the present method is just becoming very, very expensive. Now that little picture I just added for you so that you can see how big the equipment is that's doing the spraying of all the chemicals. I've got nothing against the company because it's free trade. You can buy one if you want to, or you don't have to buy one. But I just want to show you the scale that these things are happening nowadays. It's not small anymore. There you can see a combine doing, and yet you can see that even the combines nowadays can level themselves to keep the sieves level so that that can keep on working properly. And you can see the tractor on the side pulling the wagon. They have now increased the surface, the tire area into tracks to get more kilowatts to the ground. Now I was also involved now in the fertilizer race. If you're not accustomed with that, I'm just going to share to you that the prices of fertilizer is now shooting up. It's going directly upwards, becoming increasingly expensive if you can find it. Because there was a 3-week period now in which I couldn't get the fertilizer. And every day I had to wait. The amount of fertilizer I had to buy, the price was increasing by 10,000 rand. So this is now becoming increasingly scarce and increasingly expensive. And some people will not be able to keep up with this rise in cost. Now, I can sort of relate to you that if this is the way things are going to happen, the same thing is going to happen when that produce hits the racks and when you have to buy that. It's going to become terribly expensive even if it's available. So something is happening in agriculture, and we know that it's manipulated. I can give you many information today and examples of what's happening. As long as you understand that this supply chain is now going into manipulation, and the main idea is food shortage. It's a food chain that's under attack. For instance, in America, there's quite a few food processing plants that has burned down in the last while. Of the land is getting taken up by the plants, and then we eat from that. And then we have all sorts of distortions in us because of those heavy metals. Now this little picture, I'm trying to relate to you to the amount that this planet is actually being washed by that stuff right now. It's going in big time, and Dr. Stephanie Senner, I took this picture from a lecture. She is relating now that this is now causing tumor growth. It's big tumors, and it's actually painless tumors. So when you discover the tumor, it is actually a big tumor already. In one of my families, he was also a pastor in the church. he starts feeling weak and without energy, and finally he couldn't deliver service anymore, and then he was checked and they found a tumor between his kidneys as big as a shoebox. So this is what happens in this stuff. It creeps onto you and you don't always recognize that. This is also from Dr. Stephanie Seneff, and you can see there multiple cancers, the one like on skull and thyroid. You can see how the percentage goes up as the usage going up of the glyphosate. You can see the one on the liver, you can see the one on the kidney, and you can see the one on the bladder. Now there are many people on the globe trying to fight this data and giving all sorts of reasons why this is wrong, but just by looking at the data one can see there's something is wrong. The incident is going the wrong way. I want to relate these bugs that may improve your mood. This is coming from Dr. Pr and he's a neurosurgeon. And some of these microbes living in our gut produces brain neurotransmitters and stuff, and that determines much of our mood. So when we eat the stuff containing the Roundup, these guys get influenced, they slow down, their energy goes less, and we don't have what we need to be in a good spirit all the time. So it's interesting that microbes are involved in our spirit as well. Now this picture I just given to you to show to you how far back manipulation of seeds happen. And how seeds is happening. It first was hybrid breeding, then we get mutagenesis, and then we came to GMO with the dates there, then marker-assisted selection, and now we have all sorts of things happening simultaneously. Now that looks like a very good field, and looking with the eye is most pleasing, but lo and behold, that may be highly modified food that you notice there. This book is from Jeffrey M. Smith. He's a very good guy if you want to study his data to understand genetic modification. This is a book. You can also find it on, I think, YouTube, Genetic Roulette. And then you can also find the other one called Seeds of Deception. This is good information to have. He's got many more modern lectures with present data. One of the guys not taking this lying down. Now this is coming from a website, you can see there, and I've just taken a picture on that to show to you and to use that GMO crops alter human DNA. And when they alter that in the gut, the microbes slow down and they are not always able to supply what we need to have a normal life. It's interesting to notice that about 80% of our genetic makeup is sitting sort of outside our body, inside the microbes, and they manufacture what we need. Most of our immune system is also operating from there into the blood system, and that is changed by these crops. GMO foods can also and pose a real threat to humans. This is coming from the Health Ranger. You can look on his website. This guy's got his own lab and he's doing his own analysis, so when he puts this data forward, he understands what's happening because he's not using other people's data, he's using his own data from his own lab. Very good source. It's Mike Adams. If you want to look at this, he's got up-to-date data to look at. I've got the slide on here to show something to you just to help you to understand. If you cut an apple open, what happens to the apple? It oxidizes, it becomes brown. Now you'll see the little dried piece there I've cut open, and I left it for 6 weeks to become dry, but it never turned brown. Do you notice that? So then I did some research and I discovered that they use technology that make the apple actually forget to turn brown. So it doesn't become brown. And then I discovered after that, if you eat an apple like that, about 1400 brain neural systems in your brain forgets how to operate. Now, if that doesn't change you, I don't know what's going to change you. And what is shocking to me is this is coming from an apple. Just an example by an apple. So it tells you how fast Satan is moving in destroying our food, and that we have to react to that to stay abreast. Otherwise, we will receive all those changes. The leaky gut epidemic, many of the IBS systems now is coming because of the gut leaking, and if food is inflammation, that bad information leaks right through into our blood system and sort of, let's call it, affect us. The gut system has got also a layer called a mucus layer, and if we use stuff like what is potash? Say again? Baking powder, that kind of stuff. What's the one that we use in the mixture for hay fever? Sodium bicarb. What that does, it takes, if you've got a heavy attack of hay fever, what I do there, sometimes it hits me hard when we're working in those modified grains, you are there all day, all night, then your nose really starts to block up. Then I mix a little bit of salt and soda ash into water, and I flush my nose with that, and very quickly that mixture will sort of drain and make the gel flowing again, and it will drain from your nose and you will be able to breathe again. Now this stuff is, if you eat cookies with this stuff inside, it will sort of work on your mucus layer, protecting you against certain foods, and that will lead to IBS symptoms. Now in foods, like in a banana, there are lectins, and those lectins travel with the food through the system. It's not destroyed, and if it's in there and it finds what that lectin is aiming for, then it will kill that. So if there's no mucus layer to protect you, it will hit holes into the stomach wall. For instance, what I found is, looking on the internet, that there are some lectins in bananas that's able to kill AIDS viruses. So it's actually placed there by God to protect us, but if we don't protect the mucus layer, that turns against us. Okay, I want to share this with you because this is very heartening to me, and I was hoping we would have more reaction from the church, but I found this on the internet being run. This is a documentary series run on GMOs. Dr. Kentempu did host this, and this was giving lectures that you can watch every successive evening for free, and then afterwards you can buy the series with real good information on how GMOs affect us and what's happening in the field. So you can go to gmosrevealed.com and you can look at the information, and you can buy some of the stuff if you want to train yourself. I was hoping that we would participate in this and also have series like this available. But what is very interesting is there are many series coming out now. So there was the first one that I discovered was on Alzheimer's, and then there was one on cancer, and then there was one on money, what's happening with money, and then one on natural medicine, and then there was a fantastic series on Christ Revealed, by people outside the church, rendering very good research available to understand that better. And even now lately there was a series on COVID Revealed. If you want to go there And look at, you can type in COVID revealed, go to the site, look at that. It is absolutely shocking what those guys revealed. For instance, if you want to have the very latest info, you can go to Dr. Ardis and look at what he is now sort of putting on the internet to understand what's happening. And that is real scary stuff, real scary stuff. Good, then I've got another technology that I just want to relate to you. It's called CRISPR in short, the acronym. Down there is a long name. Now, I'm not good enough in English to read that long name in one blow, so, but that is what the acronym stands for. Now, what is this technology? I've just included that so you can understand it's working with Cas9 enzymes, and it is fitting in the age of the gene-edited human. This technology allows us to modify the food sources so that that comes into our system and then we become modified by that. So now you will hopefully understand better why God will sooner or later take us out of the shops. Now that's just a little picture there. The technology is refined now. You can pick a little gene out and then you can install something in there that you want to. Now the good thing where it started was to solve medical problems in people, but it very soon become used all over agriculture. If you eat stuff with all these modifications, it's becoming strange to the body. And some people may not always react friendly to that. Now that gives you an idea how it's used. They create a Cas9 protein and that reads the section with the problem on, cuts it out, and then the new section is slotted in. I've put this example from the internet in there for you. There's a lady called Susan, and Susan has got a DNA problem there sitting on top of the left, and that is called, she is suffering from sickle cell mutation, and how this technology can be utilized to take the bad gene out and to put the good gene back, so the problem is solved. So this can be put to good usage, but it can also be put to bad usage. That shows you how intricate you can approach this technology. Look where you want to go and then follow the path to arrive where you want to go. Now, I'm not saying this technology is unlimited, but I want to say it's there, it's happening, and somewhere we need to get out of it. Because what happens in this world nowadays is not always good. Sorry to say that, but it's not always good. That's just giving you a picture of what's happening and what can be done. I was studying bacteriology and virology at Stellenbosch way back in 75. And I realized there, working with plants and seeing what's happening there, I realized that virus is going to be utilized in order to affect people and actually instill changes in people. And then finally, in one of my American visits, I discovered this book, Emerging Viruses, by Dr. Horowitz. And this really shocked me. He has in this book also contracts how certain diseases were developed in the lab. And he was the guy who took a dentist in Los Angeles to court and found him guilty. That doctor was suffering from AIDS, and he hated what happened so much that he inoculated his patients with that. So this Dr. Horowitz was able to prove that. And then he started hunting for the contracts, couldn't find them because they were removed. But then finally one day he discovered a library in which the documentation was not removed. He got the contracts from there. So this is proven technology, and there you can see the diseases that was actually created in the lab. And you will notice now, listening to the news, you will see repeated outbreaks in Africa on Ebola. Now, Ebola is not friendly with humanity. It takes its toll. And just to sensitize you, you can see in the right bottom side that the medical industry is basically now the most censored science on the planet. It's absolutely controlled, and people that break that line is actually killed. Many people involved in this COVID story got killed because of the information they have. Now, Dr. Gallo was the guy that actually found the enzyme that made a virus able to reproduce itself in the cell. It would enter the cell, and then the enzyme that it produced would force the cell to reproduce it. And there you can see his statement: I created AIDS to deliberately depopulate humanity. So that's not good news. And all of a sudden pops up another virus, wondering where that was coming from. And then you will see there that even this now is able to lead man towards becoming interconnected with Wi-Fi, more and more so. And as it's getting pushed out of literature, it keeps on coming back so that we can catch those glimpses of what's happening there. Now the next stage that's going to happen, I've taken this photo. All the interference now with the food chain is telling us that this situation is coming. And we need to prepare for this. And it's not that very far off now. For one or other reason now, some of the big fertilizer factories has closed down. And like, for instance, in America, the main company belonging to BlackRock, which is the globalist company, has now decided that it will not move any more fertilizer and other stuff in America. So there's trouble coming with food. And we know that a big quantity of grains are coming from where the war is now and may not come out and reach us. Now if that doesn't happen, if that happens, this is what's waiting for us. I'm telling you this so that you can start to prepare. This is not far off. This is not far off. If we were out by 2 more weeks or 3 more weeks, we won't be able to plow the season because we're running out of time on stuff like canola in the area that I'm coming from. Now this is the next step that's going to follow. Now, from what I understand, looking in the internet, is that those lockdowns is going to be much, much more severe than the COVID ones. The COVID ones was a trial. This one will be real. Very deep, very long, very strict. Do you recognize that face? And then I want to relate to you that the next step is going to follow from this. And that is that the weather story is going to turn theological. It's going to turn towards the Sunday law thing, which will land us in trouble. So I'm not saying this to frighten you. I'm saying this to sensitize you and give you a heads up. You need to plan. Now, if we listen to Matthew 24, God says, pray that this will not happen on the Sabbath or in the winter for you. And then he also makes a statement, the ladies who are still feeding at that time and have youngsters will have great trouble in going through this. So let us start to prepare. This is not far off, I believe. By God's grace, that period was pushed forward so that we can recover as much as possible, but somewhere it's going to happen. And the way prices and availability is happening now for some of the tractors, those big gigantic tractors. You cannot find electronic parts, all the electronic parts. I've got guys now in the town where I live, they build the electronic parts for those tractors. Otherwise that farmer cannot sow. And to find tires for those tractors is a terrible problem. In USA it's even a more terrible problem. So something is happening that's eliminating the food chain. And God has given us the answer to that. So we need to quickly start to look at that and start to do that. I have many questions in this visit of what do you when you're city or in a small town or out in the open field. And there's a real good answer for that, which I've given to the church so they can discuss it under each other. I just want to relate this afternoon, and I'm basically running out of time, that this is coming. And it's going to have an agricultural base. And it's going to eliminate food from our chain. If that doesn't do it, God has to step in and sort of get a law that forbids us to buy that stuff. Because it will change us, it will rewrite us. Now I'm adding this, I found this on the internet, that they may be able, and they are not far from being able to render this possible. You can look on, if you need some of the information, you can look at Brighteon, the webpage there, and this makes God's reaction for sure needed. There are a few texts with promises. We have read some of that. It is on God will save us from the diseases of the Egyptians, which our health message make ample provision for. As long as we fulfill the condition, God's promise will be active for us. This is becoming more and more popping out, and it speaks for itself. I don't have to explain that. Now these seeds are coming from the old days when we still have healthy seeds. You'll see at the top left that blue wheat. I went to America, New Mexico, and I brought some of those blue seeds with the soft one that's easily milled, and we are making porridge big time from that, so I'm able to have non-GMO pop, like a free stater. Yes. So you can see that we've got some of the brown, and then we've got from the Hopi Indians their popcorn, which is tasting fantastic. So the problem is, if you can get those seeds, get them. But we are fast moving out of the area where that's available. For you that may be interested, the seed bank for Africa is situated in Lusaka. I was operating on the farm at Kafui, an Adventist farm, and then I went there one day and looked at the seeds that they've got there. It's amazing. It's amazing. Stuff that I've never seen before. There you see the different picture. They all must look the same, they must all become ripe at the same stage, they must all be the same size and whatever, so they can be harvested with machines. How do they achieve that? By modification. Now they've changed that so that it produces its own poisons to fight insects by itself. And it's even now modified to the stage where it produces its own herbicide inside there. So if you eat that, it will not be, how can I say, well with you. Because that stuff influences us. If you want to look it up, look at the BT gene. And look how it went in there and what the effects will be on you. Now, I'm just relating this to you. They are now able to manufacture starch in a factory or in a lab by chemicals. No plant involved. So if you buy those packets of starch powder, where is it coming from? That's the question that's becoming very important now. Because the chemical one, I believe, although it's better because you're not weather susceptible and whatever. Now, if the weather changes, eliminate the farmers, these guys making this will have the whole market. Cultured meat, it's taken from the little calf, some stem cells, and then it's grown in the lab and becomes a patty on a burger. Lab-grown meat, beef, that's coming. Because you don't need big stables, you don't need feed, you don't need the weather or antibiotics or whatever. It's just grown in a factory. It's coming, for sure. It's coming at a speed. If you research this, there's going to be a lot of shocking information. The one that bothers me the most is this picture. There's human fetus cells in the food products you buy. Now again, this is coming from Mike Adams, the food ranger. He's got his own lab and he can verify it for himself. So, sorry. There is a website that you can see, Xenomics, that you can look at. What will be the influence of this on us? What do you think is going to be the influence of this on us? It's going to change us into cannibalists. You will remember in the city of Jerusalem, when the situation was getting dire, the spirit of prophecy writes and says, the hands that have looked after the kids so well, put them into boiling water to boil them for food. We are going there. History is repeated. So somewhere we will have to get out of the food chain, for sure. I want to say something, but let me rather not say that.
Say it.
Yeah, say it.
No.
Say it later.
Well, if you want to look at it, it's on Mike Adams' site. He has published it. And that means the COVID vaccine that is generated, they have to harvest parts from aborted fetuses while they're still living without any anesthesia. That's not good. That's not good. Right, I'm just going to give you some information here which I want to leave with you so that you can understand. And understand, when God was leading them out of slavery, He was giving them good starch food to eat, but He was denying meat from their diet. And we are now in the same stage where we need to look at that. I've made the statement there as a summary. Meat eating leads to rebellious mindsets, the lessons from Exodus. Now there's a quote from Councils on Dietary Foods, 375. The state of the mind has largely to do with the health of the body and especially with the health of the digestive organs. Now Roundup is influencing that directly. As a general thing, the Lord did not provide His people with flesh meat in the desert because He knew that the use of this diet would create disease and secondly, insubordination. And that's what we see on this planet. Respect is flying out of the window. In order to modify the disposition and bring the higher powers of the mind into active exercise, He removed from the flesh of dead animals. He gave them angels' food, manna from heaven. I just want to make sure that you understand the meat question. That's the reason for the meat question. In blue there, I've encircled for you, you can see the councils on church there, 230, 5th paragraph. Eating much flesh will diminish intellectual activity. That means the rot that needs to be alive and distinguished is slowed down by a diet containing this. Now here was spirit Ellen White sitting at the table with several children under the age of 12 years. The food was on the table, and then she noticed a delicate, nervous little girl called for pickles. A bottle of chow, fiery with mustard and pungent with spices, so that is hot stuff, was handed her, from which she helped herself freely. The child was proverbial for his nervousness and irritability of temper. And these fiery condiments were well calculated to produce such a condition. So if you've got unnecessary strife in your house and with your children and stuff, check this out. Because it feeds a wrong disposition. I think this is about the last I want to add from my side before Marie take over. You know the stuff that's like Cocoa Pops and that stuff that's being fed to the children now. It's made in those machines. And those machines use very high pressure, very high temperatures to push it through a small needle, and you end up with those foodstuffs or this cheese, whatever bites that you can eat. Now when that condition is reached in that machine, there's a process called glycation. You can do your research on the process of glycation. That is when the proteins and the sugars in the food starts to react and forms unnatural substances for the human body. Glycation is not a good process. It is related to what we call Maillard's reaction, if you want to research that also. Maillard is M-A-I-L-L-A-R-D, if you want to study that. Now that's the inside of the machine, just describing to you how that worm is pressurizing that stuff until it goes through that nozzle, and as it pops through, it instantly becomes cooked, which is unnatural. How can you have an instantly cooking? Even if you make popcorn, you have to warm up the stuff before it explodes. That's very interesting. I was working in a facility where we bred like 18 million moths a day. And they prefer the stuff that's cooked, the popping stuff. We prefer the other stuff. I mean for health. Good, so there you can see the glycation setup, how it happens. I want to show you, if you discover on the internet the term AGEs, that is the bad products which form during this like glycation. Now here you just find sugar. Glycation is worse than this. You see on the left hand side, you see a normal skin, and the structure and the web in the skin is soft and pliable. On the right hand side at the bottom, you see one where the sugar has started to influence the skin, break those supple bonds and form very stiff bonds in there for you. Now I'll show you what a photo of a glycated skin, but I want to show you what AGEs looks like. You see that brown parts, the burnt parts? Those are the bad stuff containing, how would you say, destroyed food, where there has formed a lot of strange substances in the food. You also find it here. In that situation, and the fats that burn down in the coals, making that white smoke, that white smoke is smoking that food for you, and that stuff is highly carcinogenic. That is what glycation does to a skin. Now I cannot imagine any lady who wants that skin. This is my last slide, Marie, so you can prepare to come up. I just want to relate that body fat is a powerful brain toxin. This is also coming from Dr. Perlmutter's website. You can check it out. And he's done quite a bit of research on this. Nowadays, you see the gentlemen walking around in town, and they are basically looking if they are expecting. And when I noticed this and I saw them, I can just think, what's happening to us? What is happening to us now? Where I work and operate now, the ladies has got the same problem. We had a lady now that was all of a sudden preparing to give birth. She did not even expect it because she was so overweight that it didn't make sense. So guys, that's my story. Those who can read Afrikaans, this little guy is phoning his grandmother and said, "Grandmother, your daughter, which is my mother, is taking away all the stuff I want and I cannot have it." Now, in the previous lecture, I will be able to complete, and we're going to record it afterwards. I was asking the question, there was a photo where the mom had the baby in her hand, and she was handing an ice cream to her to take a bite from that. And then I asked the question below there, is this going to influence this baby negatively? So in hunting for an answer, I discovered in the book of Daniel, there was a king, and he's warned from Deuteronomy 8 that he should not do that. And one day he was walking there and he did what he shouldn't do. He was looking at this, he was looking at this monarchy of his, and he said, "Well, my hands did this." So he became proud in his character. How did the Lord heal that? The Lord sent him to eat from the oxen. For how many years? When he came back, he was one of the only outside kings that was allowed to write the whole chapter in the Bible. Now, I want to challenge you to go and read what he has written, how much that food has changed him, right down into his character. So yes, if you hand the ice cream, it will change your children. It will do that. Well, thank you for listening. Marit, I think you need to grab this and you can relate this information. Have you got your little microphone? Where is it? Okay, well, I'll just dismantle this and bring it to you quickly, otherwise they won't be able to hear. You know how to handle this?
Guys and girls, are you still having energy for more? You want to take a 5-minute break? You want to go on?
I will take this off.
We go on and finish. Okay. I thought I'm going to get free from this one. Thank you. You can just check there for me, is the sound good? Or do I still need to speak? Is it good? Okay, excellent. Okay, any other of you, what is your motivation for growing your own food?
To be able to be self-sustainable, not go to shops and buy things that are really motivated and full of hormones.
Definitely so, definitely so. I can go to Woolworths and buy so-called organic food. What is the definition of organic food? Let's first see, what do you need to be able to do to label your food organic? Pardon? If I want to sell organic food, my seed needs to be my own, my compost needs to be my own. I might not buy in anything from outside. Only then can I call my food organic, not before then. So the other thing that worries me is that for 6 months of the year, an organic farmer is allowed to sell his produce from his neighbor that is not organic, which he labels organic, because he doesn't have produce. It's part of the law. So am I really buying a good food or not? So my motivation is manifold, but one reason is I've got the personality of not trusting everybody around me. If I don't see it, I can't believe it. You know, my current boss for who I'm working, he says, have you checked that the guy has done it? If the answer is no, you can't say it's done. So that is my current situation. Then, knowing about what's happening in the gardening and in the food industry, I'm not interested in that. And then I don't grow organic. Organic, if you look at your ladder of ordinary food and you look at your vitamins and minerals and just spend a moment's time there, you all heard the word hybrids or not yet? Hybrid is when they're tampered with seeds in the terms of get the best mum and the best dad to get the best produce at the end and the best yield at the end. It doesn't mean it's the best food that you get. But in that process, that plant is only able to supply you with 16 minerals. How many minerals are there on the table that you need? Pardon? You say it aloud?
I think it was something around 80 something.
84? But the food that we buy can possibly only supply 16. If we go to the genetically modified, Gerrit has touched on that, where does that leave us? Possibly less, but also we are now starting to produce Roundup and stuff in our bodies. We're starting to produce the wrong stuff with those genes that has been changed. So I, in person, don't want to go the risk. If we add seawater, what we're doing seaponic fruits or veggies. If you add seawater, if you add a lot of organic material, both seawater and earthworms can change you back to better genes in your food. So if you work with only compost, you've got very little or no life under your soil. And that is the way, my reason for doing this. So what do you see there on the screen? That's about 12 by 12 meters. It's an Eiserfontein. I need to move to Lindley. I've got 3 weeks' time. I want to grow my food. Oops. How am I going to do this in 3 weeks' time by myself? It's impossible. For those of you who know me, you will know I get things done yesterday. I can move. So I thought, okay, how am I going to do this? Quickly phone Soil for Life. Organize 12 people. Next week they come out. And we started doing the thing. I've used their method together with our own method. Let me just see. I'm going. Okay, there's just a picture of more or less what it looked like at the time when we started off. What I actually want to show you there is, what is the soil like there? It's sea sand. Now there's the one example that I've planted and grown in sea sand. I'm not sure I put another picture in. There was another picture of a place where I planted in the yellow clay. I had to work that clay a bit like this at a time, a bit like this at a time. And yet my corn grew higher than me. Okay, that is just, I don't know why that picture is in there, but it's just more seawater there. Gerrit, I think this is your pictures. You want to explain what's going on here? You want me to just skip? What do I need when I want to do my own garden? What do you see there on the board? That is not actually compost, but that's in the process of making compost, organic material. People, the more organic material you're going to use, the better for yourself, the better for your plants. There is a way of making, and that's just a picture of a compost that we'll be doing there. Remember to close your compost. What can I use in my compost? Pardon? Yeah, you can. It's just a very tiny way of doing it. But what material can I use in my compost? If you want to make a compost heap, what are you going to put together? Help me.
Leaves, grass.
Yeah?
Grass clippings.
Yeah? Yeah? Pardon? Make sure the seeds are out. Make sure you don't use weeds that's got seeds, otherwise you don't make your compost good and you don't reach 65 degrees C, you're going to spread the seeds of your weeds forever. But that's a thing that you can use. Anything else? Just speak up loud, lady.
Comfrey breaks down the
Yes?
things.
Comfrey.
Comfrey leaves and throw them.
Yeah, comfrey helps to improve your compost and make it quicker. That's definitely so. Anything else? I'm still missing some things.
Ash.
Wow. What is ash doing to your compost heap? You're on the right track. You just don't have the answer. In the early 1900s, before this, what revolution, Gerard? Industrial revolution. There were more rich people or there were rich people and very poor people. And in the morning, the rich people will knock at the poor people's door. And you know what the poor people will hand them? Koos. You know what koos is? Huh? It's a pea pot. In the night, they collected their wee, and in the mornings, they would sell it to the rich people. That was their way of income. Yeah, it sounds gross. But that is what was used in those days for fertilizer. As wood as, not coal as. Wood as and wee. They used that for compost. So those are the things that you can use. Gerard makes a joke. I've got I'm running a nursery, but I've got a grenadella tree there. And there's no water with that tree. We don't give it water. You know, every so often somebody will say, oh, maybe the trees, and give it some water, but it does not have a regular flow of water. And he makes a joke and he says, because he's peeing there every time he's going past. That's why it's growing vigorously. I mean, it will cover from there to, it's one tree from there to possibly here. It'll cover this area, to 2/3 of this area that way. It covers that. I had a trellising system made for that. I'm harvesting grandellas there like mad. Okay, what do we see there? Now, I in person use the Trent's garden. There's a lot of people that believe we should not disturb the soil, and I don't disagree with them in facts, but there's certain ways. If soil is dead, I need to do something about it. I can't leave dead soil and expect to get good food. So the way that I'm doing it is I'm growing a Trent's. Now, before growing making your Trent's, you need to establish a few things. Shade and morning sun. Plant your seedlings in morning shade, and you will forever regret that, because I don't want to grow. Plant it in the morning sun, it just goes. The other thing that you take in consideration is you dig your beds east to west, not north to south. Plan to work east to west. Your plants grow best east to west. The smaller plants in the western and the eastern side, the bigger plants in the western side. So the afternoon's shade is going to fall on your small plants because there are bigger plants planted there. How deep do I dig this trench? You dig it 60 deep. Now, our ordinary spade, if you take a laser spade, from the handle to the very end is 1 meter. So you don't need a tape measure. The blade of a spade is 30 centimeters. So the first 30 centimeters I put on my right hand side, that's called topsoil. The second 30 centimeters I put on my left, that's called subsoil. Now the subsoil is normally dead. The topsoil is normally have still some life in it. That is, okay. Then we line that with card box if you do have. The card box should not have plastic on it. If you got that nails and stuff on, that's still fine, because that decomposes, but it should not have plastic on. Plastic cannot decompose. Then we start off with something like big logs. Wood pieces like this. Wood cuttings. You've pruned something or chopped off a tree or something like that. That goes in your bottom layer. And that can be up to 30 centimeters high. Then you put some of your subsoil back, let's say 10, 15 centimeters. Then you go finer twigs and things. And as higher you go, the finer you go. You can take anything that you can think of, and possibly you all name me something that you have already named me some things that you can put on there. The higher you go, the finer you go. Are we still okay? Then from there we go to finer things. What you see here is corn leaves and stuff. I have got the benefit of having access to almost anything. The best to do if you don't have access is to go to the dumping site. This whole program of Soil for Life, when you can go Google Soil for Life. The whole program of Soil for Life was developed for the informal sector. So you go to the dump site and you collect there what you need. You will find any kind of greens there that you need. You'll find any kind of plastic there what you need, because take a yogurt, cut it in pieces, make your name tags from that. Don't take a buy fancy things. Find a tin and make holes in it and put a wire handle on it and make a water can of it. So be inventive, especially if you don't have money. If you've got enough money, buy fancy things, it's no big deal. Then the thing that you have to be taken care of is, for compost to happen, it needs stikstof, carbon gerad, nitrogen. You need nitrogen to make compost. But if you plant a plant, it needs nitrogen to grow. If those things happen together, there's going to be a fight. So if you, in the bed that you're making, put undigested greens on top where you're going to plant, you're going to have an issue. You don't want that. There's your ash that you just spoken about, that you want. So it's a layer of whatever big trees, your soil. I use seashells. You can use ash on there. Then you start off with your next layer. The thinner soil, seashells, ash, whatever you've got. And so you go layer for layer. When you end up with that thing, you see there, I can't use the red cursor for that. But you can see that bed is about 25 centimeters higher than the level that we started off. Nicely working off that bed to have a long square bed. Now the size of that door there, or the size of this door, doesn't matter which one, can feed a family of 4 people for 3 months. So you do companion planting, you plant different things there, and you can feed a family of 4 people for 3 months. So that gives you an indication of how big your garden needs to be. And then obviously you have to plant in month 1 your one bed, and possibly in month 2 or 3 your next bed. But you need to have consecutive fruit. You can't wait until everything's out of this bed and reuse the bed. So you need to have more than one bed at a time going. Then we're talking about mulching. What is mulching? Any ideas on mulching?
I don't know if we're on the same track as with you, but with mulching too, often to use wood chips and that.
Wood chips is excellent. It's excellent mulching. It attracts the earthworms.
Yeah.
And where you've got earthworms, you've got life.
Yeah.
And they like breeding next to it into wood. So that's an excellent way of mulching. Any other ideas for mulching? What do you see there? Straw can work. Anything that can decompose you can do. How thick do you want to mulch? At least this. So it's okay to mulch like this, but remember, the mulch is tomorrow's compost. So if you mulch thin, you have little compost for the future. And this bed that's made here does not get remade when you replant. Because you're putting on mulching on a regular basis, when you take out your old harvest, you can just put another layer of your own compost on there, some seashells or some wood ash, and a little layer of soil, and start planting again. And then do your mulching again. I had an interesting thing. Opposite me is a home that is, they've broken in and everything is gone there. But it's got quite a big yard. And I'm moaning with my boss. I say, listen, I want to plant that yard. And Yeah, but there was 3 or 4 fruit trees there that we just started taking care of. And slowly but surely, you know, if I get a tree, you know, I plant another fruit tree there. Some 18 months ago, he gave me the go-ahead to do a orchard there, a fruit orchard there, and I now got about 100 banana trees there. But I had an issue with weeds there. My weeds are standing like this all the time. Now, yeah, I'm using that for my juices or my smoothies, but that's way too many. So then I ordered one of the guys. I said, bring me 2 or 3 loads of bales of hay. And Gerard says, what do you want to do with that? I said, I'm going to mulch this whole yard. Now this yard is, I don't know how big. Gerard, 1 hectare or more or less?
200 by 60 or 70.
Any case. And they laughed at me. They said, the wind's going to blow it all away. I said, well, it's fine. And I mulched that place. And I've got almost no weeds there. I had an issue around the corner of the house. I took a pellet and I put the pellet on top of the mulch and off you go. So I'm controlling my weeds with mulch. I've got another site where I've planted my veggies this way here. Then they decided to give that site to another gentleman who wants to plant his flowers there, and he removed every organic material that you can find. And the weeds, like this. And they said to me, you're responsible for that. I said, no, I did not remove. No, this is your site. And it took me almost a year to convince them. And the last time I asked the boss, he says, yes, and the other guy says, no. And he says, are you going to take out the weeds? And he kept quiet and I did my mulching. So I got it my way. But mulch is one of your better things to do. So you can see that you can use anything. If you want to use sawdust, it's fine. Just make sure that you use sawdust from untreated wood. If it's treated wood, it's not going to work. What's happening there? My husband is having tanks on his trailer to load seawater. So Department Agriculture and Fisheries stopped at him and says, sir, you're stealing seawater. He says, really? Yeah, but we have to find you. He says, I'll make you a deal. The moment that you can see that the sea's level has lowered, you can give me a fine. And they just laughed and they walked off. Yes, we were using seawater as part of our irrigation. We use about 5% seawater in a mixture to use. You don't want to use more because you don't want to use salt. And somebody asked me today and say, yeah, but salt is killing. That's true if you're talking about processed salt. So that's what you buy in the shop that is called salt, that is white. I call it white death. That contains of 2 minerals, of which chlorine is the bigger one. And that kills everything. When you use sea salt, you've got all the minerals in there. When you use Himalayan salt or pink salt, you've got all your 84 minerals in there, and that does not kill. That makes growing. So that is the team that I put together in those 3 weeks' time. And my garden was there. You can see my garden is planted. Made my plan, so make your plan. That is a seed box. It was just what do you call those groot ton? No, it's not a pellet. It's fruit boxes. What word het genoem? A bin. We've just done the layers in the bin, and there we put quite a bit of compost on top, and sown our seeds in there, and label them. And you can see the labels are all homemade. That's standing there. Yeah, and those are my tomatoes that's growing that high. You can see my cabbages here in front. Plants doing very well there. The spinach was about this height at end point. That big plant there in the background is kale. That thing grew like this. I'm too heavy, fall down and start growing again. I'm too heavy and fall down and start growing again. And it just kept on growing. We eventually had to take it out to get rid of it. The peas there, can you see, we trellised the peas, that was over 2 meters high. At that stage we treated Mark Woodman, and some of his friends came to visit, and we have shelled the peas, and the crates were standing outside with the pea shells. And the gentleman, not knowing that the peas was out, he took it and he started eating it, and he discovered that the actual pea was out. He came to me and says, "Why are you throwing away these things?" I said, "But that's the shells." He said, "They are so sweet, you can't throw them away." So nice they were at that time. What is Ilse got in her hand there? It's a radish. That's that size. Yeah. It's a radish. You can see there the leaves. It's not beetroot, it's a radish. Okay. You know, here I'm living in town. There's no soil for garden. It's only paving-ish. I have to grow. So what did I do? I took 20-liter buckets, cut them open on the side, and off I go, and there you see my plants. I'm making my plan. I'm making my plan. I have to grow my own food. You know, sometimes we've got more excuses than we've got reason for being unhappy. If that is not an option, what about that option? That is microgreens. The piece of equipment that I know there, I bought in a Chinese shop. It's called a rice cooker. Soaking my seeds. Have any of you made microgreens before? So that is microgreens that I've soaked for 8 to 10 hours. Remember, microgreens needs extra strong water. The other seeds don't need all that warm water, but they need slightly strong warm water. Soak them for 8 hours. Drain them, put them on the sieve part of that thing. That thing consists of a cat's, my English is not good at all. But it's three things. It's a flat one that can keep water, and then it's like a strainer, and then it's got a see-through lid. So you put that on the strainer section, you wash it in the morning and the evening, you put the lid on during daytime, not in the sun, because they go rotten in the sun. It needs light, but not sun. And so you can grow even your greens by doing that. We are used to buy sprouts. Sprouts is very healthy. Microgreens are better. When it got its first 2 leaves, it's got much more nutrition than sprouts. There's nothing wrong with sprouts. I don't say there's anything wrong with sprouts. I just say that microgreens has got more value. There's another form of microgreens there, that is sunflower seeds. That is actually planted in the soil there. Just another form of microgreens that's in the soil, the various beans that I've used there. Okay, now this is in Afrikaans. But what is the benefits of seawater organic produce? You've got much less pests and disease. You don't have that, or your taste is much better. For those of you attending the cooking school tomorrow, I brought some stock powder along and some salt along that I've made from my own herbs. And you just can't believe the taste. It's herbs that I've dehydrated and made those things. And the taste is just unbelievable. I had a hotel. I'm supplying a local greengrocer in Bredasdorp of veggies. And the local hotel just said, "No, we don't buy organic." And I left it there. And I don't know what happened, how it happened, but at one point, some of my produce gets slipped through to the hotel. And then the owner of the veggie shop phones me and he says, "I just want to tell you something. That hotel wants nobody else's produce but yours." He says, "They just say the flavor is unbelievable." Okay. Then the nutritional value is between 400 and 900% more than the ordinary stuff that you can buy. There I've put you with the hybrids that can only have 16 minerals. Now if you use a fractometer is something to measure bricks with, which is the sugar quantity of plants. You've got a little line on there. If that's a straight line, a very hard line, it means there's very few minerals in. If you can hardly see that line, it means you've got a lot of minerals in there. So we've got another friend who is very fond of my produce, and he's also into his way of healthy business. It's not necessarily my way, but his way of healthy business. And I don't know, 6 months ago, he ordered some tomatoes from me again. And he phoned me back. He says, "This is unbelievable. The bricks of your tomatoes is 16. He says, "I bought some tomatoes from, I don't know whether Woolies." He says that their bricks are about 5 or 6. So, and he says that line is hardly visible, and that we use Seawater for that. Okay, you will attract earthworms. You can change if you've got seed that the genetica is wrong of, the genes are wrong of, it will be changed back. And you can have 60 plus minerals. And the last point is quite good. Your shelf life is much, much longer with produce grown this way. That's just some pictures of our veggies that we got in the greenhouses. That was April 2018. That is a Russian black tomato. If you've never tasted that, you've never tasted a tomato. There will be some of them there. I think there's some of them there tomorrow for the thing. Sweet basil, just a few pictures. I would just like to challenge you people to all eat from your own garden. And that's it. Is there anything from anybody else? Any questions? Have fun. I don't see Asanda somewhere around here. Shall we close off? Oh.
Just tell me a bit about you said adding seawater is going to change the genetics of the seed. Is that what you said?
Okay, so adding seawater to your watering will change. If I have got, let's for argument's sake say I've used cow manure, but the cows got fed something that the cows got fed corn. There's corn in their fodder. It means I've got genetically modified organisms in my produce now. So now my soil is in trouble. Then the seawater together with the earthworms will change that back. So that it will work out that genetically form of stuff that's in my stuff. You understand what I'm saying? Well, you know something, and that is just to tell you, the calcium that's in the egg of a chicken, where is that coming from? The professor said to the student, it's coming from the bones of the chicken. Then the student went and he made his calculation. He says, "Sir, if that's true, that chicken needs to be soup in a week's time, because there will be no calcium in his bones." So we don't understand these things. The Lord has made wonderful things that we don't understand, but we know that if an earthworm has digested something, on the other side, whatever comes out there, even if it digests a corn that's GMO, what comes out on the other side is no GMO. And seawater does the same. It gives it the ability to do that. Okay. Okay, I'm listening. I'll be with you now.
You talk about earthworms. You're not talking about those little red wigglies, are you?
To me, it doesn't matter which one.
Okay.
But both of them will do it. You know, there's a big hype. It should be only the red wrigglers. It should be only the red wrigglers. They've got their place for something specific, but they're not the only ones that's doing it. You can use any earthworms to do that. And the thing is, even if there's no earthworms in your soil that you can see, and you start off with this process, if you open your eyes, there will be hands full of earthworms in your soil. Okay. Was this any? No. Yes.
Obviously, you say with the seawater it helps with pests and all that stuff, but what pesticide would you use, obviously, if it doesn't help with everything?
Okay, let's just look at the seawater that will help with the pesticides. What happens is that if I eat healthy food, I will stay healthy. If the plant feeds on healthy soil, it will stay healthy. So that is the principle behind that. But it does happen that you do get disease. That is a fact. Sin is not ruled out in our place. It does happen. So there's various things that you can use. Currently, I'm experimenting with, it's not compost tea. It's rather called compost minerals. So that is one way. Today, I'm not able to give you that answer because I'm still playing around with that. But you can make a tea from garlic and chilies that you can use. There is a thing called, Gerard, what is that garlic thing that we use? I'll just think about the name, I'll tell you the name now. But there is a few things that you can use. If you're interested, you can take my email address and I can email you the recipes of all these various things that you use. This lady that spoke about the bonnet comfrey, you can use that as well. What we do is we make a comfrey tea. Now, if you make the tea within the first 3 days, you use it, it serves one purpose. If you use it past 3 days, it serves another purpose. Just make sure that whenever you make these teas, you start smelling. If you get a strong smell, you've got an anaerobic thing, and then it's no good, then you have to throw it away. Then Ellen White writes something very interesting. She says we need to take care, but if we have to spray, we have to spray. So on the market you find your green label, you find your blue label, you find your yellow label, you find your red label, you find your purple label. Now the purple and the red label you really don't want to use. If you're in really trouble, you will use them. The yellow label, Gerard, am I right? The yellow label is still killing the insects? Yeah, the yellow label still kills your natural enemies. So you'd rather steer clear from that. So if you do go buy a poison, go for your blue and your green labels. Those are the safer poisons to use. Don't spray the same thing every time, because they get resistant to that. Play around with something like your fungal diseases, vinegar. Take vinegar and water and spray your plants with that. That kill your fungal diseases. Things for like cutworm. We cut either toilet paper, but toilet paper rolls, but that's a bit flimsy because it gets soft with the water. We use these blue pipes that we cut in pieces. Put that over your plant when you're planting them, and a cutworm can't get to that. So there's a couple of these natural things that you can do to overcome these issues.
We're struggling with ants. Ants is like the biggest thing.
There's something that's called citronal
or neem oil.
Yeah, citronal works. Neem oil is a natural thing. Neem oil works. Keep in mind that neem oil sprayed in the heat will burn your plant. So that's something that neem oil is very good. Something that I'm using a lot is diatomaceous earth. And go to your co-op and buy something that's called Voerdokter. It's very cheap. If you go to the people that sells these things for these purposes, they ask you an arm and a leg. But if you go to the co-op, the local co-op, and you ask for Voerdokter, it's very cheap, and you use that. I use that as a snail preventative thing. I use that if I've got fungal diseases, if I've got moesvlieg, that's a little fly that eats the root of my plant. So I use that for quite a bit of those kind of things. Back to your ants, you can grate the rind off of your lemons and put it there. That works. So there's quite a bit of that things. But if you want to go quick and easy way, it's either going to be neem oil or citronal. Either one of those two. Citronal is quite expensive, but those can work for that. Okay. Any other questions?
The other day I heard someone was using peroxide, a dilutant, to spray on the plants. Have you ever tried that? Do you know anything about it?
Look, peroxide works for many things. If all of us just learn to use peroxide inside our houses, we will have much less disease, because peroxide is a disinfectant. Pardon? Gerard, say again?
It also helps for oxygen in the ground and what have you.
You can put it in your water tank, and it will clean your water tank, it will clean your pipes, it will clean everything. So you can use it, yes. There's nothing wrong with it. Whether it will kill your pests, and I'm not sure about that one. It will rather make your plant strong, and your plant will then be able to resist the pests. The other thing that we use is silica. Silica, we only spray that once a month. Also a natural thing that builds the plant's immune system and make the plant hard and strong so that the insects can't attack it. You want to say something else?
No, I was just going to say the article that I saw, the day before they sprayed with the peroxide, the next day they made a dilution with the bicarbonate of soda and a few drops of biodegradable soap. And then they put the neem oil in it.
It does work.
And it was, they used that for aphids and for fungi and for...
It definitely does work. It does work.
Oh, and then the other thing that I heard the other day was the raw treacle, the blackstrap. They used that on the soil. They say it activates the worms.
It feeds the worms.
Yeah.
It feeds the worms. So we dilute that.
Makes it work quicker.
Yeah. We dilute that with water, but that feeds the microbes in the soil. It definitely does feed the microbes in the soil. Yes, so you can go ahead with that. I just think there's a difference between the crude one and the sweet one, and you should go for the crude one. Yeah. Okay.
So when you want to put nitrogen back into the soil, you use Epsom salt.
Epsom salt is magnesium. That's not nitrogen. Nitrogen, you possibly would rather use, you'd rather plant your legume family and work your legume family's stuff in. That will supply you with nitrogen. Your legume family is very high in that. But if you use the natural way of thinking, you will not have a shortfall in that. Anybody else who would like to add to us? Okay. Thank you so much, Sandra. Then I think we're the end of this. Can I ask you to come and pray for us? To end off, please.
Just before I pray, just a reminder that tomorrow we are praying. Tomorrow at 9 o'clock, so let's meet in the house tomorrow morning. Thank you. Let us close our eyes to pray. Our Father who art in heaven, we come before your holy throne, Father, to thank you, to give you glory, and to give you praise. To thank you, Father, for all the lessons, Father, and all the teachings that you have taught us today through your faithful servants. We ask, my Lord and Savior, that you will help us to remember these teachings, Father. Help us to implement these teachings, Lord, so that we may live a life that is pleasing unto you. Father, we pray for Mrs. Pienaar and Pastor Pienaar, Lord. We thank you for bringing them here, Lord, for equipping them with such knowledge. And we just pray, Lord and Savior, that you will be with them, that you will bless them, that you will show them favor, and you will help them to preach this message or to teach this message far and wide. We thank you, Father, for all that you have done for us and all that you are yet to do for us. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Maybe at this stage I just share something else with you on your question of magnesium. I had the gifsmous out there because I'm running a nursery, in the nursery I have to do what has to be done, in my veggies I can do what I want to, but in the nursery not. And my Christmas roses turning yellow and yellow and yellow. And they scratches the head and they don't know what. So I said to Gerard, you know what? I went to the co-op and I bought a whole bucket of magnesium or then Epsom salts. And I gave each one of them a huge spoon of Epsom salts. And meanwhile, I've sent away some leaves for analysis. And 10 days later, the same Gifred comes and he says, what have you done to this plant? What fertilizer did you give this plant? It was just growing. I had another experience where my seedlings just stands there. We don't want to. And then a gentleman that's growing a lot of these things, he came to me and he says, why don't you try? And I said, well, I'm not allowed to, but let's do it. So I took all my rows and I took gypsum, but I mixed with water. And I made one row gypsum and then one row lime And there's one space where they cross the gypsum and the lime. And Gerard comes there, he says, what's going on here? These middle plants looks like nothing. These ones on the sides, they're growing, but these corner ones, they're looking so good. And those are cheap things that cost you almost nothing. Just said that it's dolomitic lime, it's not calcitic lime. So try these natural things, they're working. Enjoy, thanks for coming.
Hannah's sitting and drinking juice, and I said, "You need to stop drinking because that's actually food and so you eat in between your meals." She says, "No, it tastes so nice." So she's really enjoying it. Thank you, Mama. Yep. I find it difficult for my kids. She's okay. Jude doesn't like to drink things he doesn't know. So she really enjoyed it. She just says, "It's so nice." So what you doing for him? You're mixing it. Okay.
We want to complete the previous lecture, so
I do that with people.